All right, it's another edition of the Wrap-Up Show with John Schaefer and Jim Russell. We're presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance. If you're new to our channel, we've got you covered throughout free agency and all year long. We're offering exclusive year-round Padres content. That's why you should hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button, Jim is pointing to it right now. It's down below. Not only should you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That's how you'll find out when we have new videos. Also, like this content. Follow us on Twitter at John Schaefer, at Jim Russell SD. Yesterday, we looked at free agent position players. Today, we'll look at free agent pitchers that could potentially be on their way to San Diego. Before we do that, let's tell you about Mark Nimitz, our buddy. If you're looking for insurance, he can help. Auto, home, renters, or life insurance right here in San Diego. There's only one place to turn. It's to a San Diegan. Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance. He's got a decade of experience helping people like us find the perfect insurance products. And what separates Mark from the competition, his customer service and his communication. There's a link down below. If you have insurance needs, all we ask you to do, if you're a supporter of the show, is click the link down below. You'll get to Mark's website. He can help you and your family with your insurance needs.
And if you have any questions for him, if you want to reach out to him right now, it's very easy. His phone number, email address are above my head, mnimitz@farmersagent.com. That's mnimitz@farmersagent.com.
All right, so what are the Padres' needs? And by the way, you're going to want to stick around for this entire video because we're going to run through all types of options, what's realistic, what isn't realistic when it comes to pitching help for the Padres in 2022. So, Jim, let's address the needs, which have to be back-end rotation help. You know that in 162, you'll have injuries as well. So you have to have more than 5 reliable. Everyone knows that. Every team knows that. It's not even about having 6 guys. I mean, it's really about having some level of depth in your rotation, a 7th and an 8th, guys in AAA that are veterans that can help you when you need them. So they need back-end rotation help. And obviously, they're going to upgrade their bullpen or try to do that because every team in baseball does that as well. We don't know, Jim, if Mark Malanson will be back either. So they need starters and they need relievers like most teams in baseball heading into 2022.
And going into last year, we all thought that problem or the issue about not having enough starters like they did not have in 2020 and at the end of the season was fixed. You know, they had, Musgrove, Snell, Darvish. Those are the 3 acquisitions that Preller made in the offseason. You had Paddock, you had Morahone, you had Lamet possibly, you had Weathers, maybe Gore. Like I think we all felt like this team had enough pitching at the start of last year, right?
Yeah, I did.
And then it seemed like within a matter of a couple weeks, you're like, oh, they have a depth problem. And you know, that can't happen again. Like the pitching has to be the number one priority. Yes, this team needs power. Yes, this team needs a corner outfielder. Yes, this team needs bench help. Pitching wins you championships. And if you don't have enough pitching, you're not going to win games. We all saw what happened last year when they had to trot out Vince Velasquez and Jake Arrieta, and then Chris Paddock got hurt, and you're relying on a young rookie in Ryan Weathers. Darvish got hurt. There was only one pitcher last year that made it through the full season. That was Joe Musgrove. That can't happen. You just cannot have that happen. You need to have multiple guys in your rotation make at least 30 plus starts next year. It's just that has to be a priority with this team. I think there's well more than enough pitching this offseason in the free agent market that they can go out and get, not for big deals, but to round out their rotation, and hopefully Ruben Niebla can fix some guys in that rotation that can help from within, because you're not going to go out and spend a boatload of money on like a Max Scherzer or even a Marcus Stroman. But you can get guys on 1-year deals to help out in the back end of your rotation. And then you hope that guys can stay healthy, and you hope that Mike Clevenger, who knows what he can give you next year, but if he can give you 115 innings next year, I think that's a major win.
Yeah, I mean, you look at next year, the funny thing is they actually, if things work out and Ruben Niebla benefits some of these guys that have had struggles, Ryan Weathers, Mackenzie Gore, Mike Clevenger, who's going to be 18 months off Tommy John, you actually come at it from a position of greater strength than you had just a year ago. With all that being said, and based on the collapse of 2021, you just have to add because you just don't know what will happen. Now, you mentioned a couple guys that won't happen. So let's run through some pitchers that we believe are very unlikely to end up in San Diego for a number of reasons, including they don't really need a number one. They're not going to pay for a number one.
No.
And their payroll is already high heading into the offseason. So I'll just throw out some names. Kevin Gausman, massive year. I don't see it. He'll get multiple years. Max Scherzer had a chance to come here. He didn't. I don't see it now, and I don't see it. Why would you pay him now? He didn't want to come to you a half year ago. Clayton Kershaw, I don't see it. I wouldn't want him, to be honest with you. He's going to make a lot of money. He's been hurt a ton. Carlos Rodon is coming off an amazing season. He's going to get multiple years. Robbie Ray is an interesting one. He had an awful 2020, followed up by an amazing 2021.
To win the Cy Young in the AL.
Yeah, I mean, so you would assume based on 2021, he's getting multiple years and he's getting a big deal.
Right.
So I'd be surprised at that. And then in the bullpen, I think we'd both be surprised if a Kenley Jansen made his way from Los Angeles to San Diego. So those are some names where, I mean, I'm sure I'm missing some as well. I'm sure we're missing some, but all those names, you'd be surprised if any of those were a Padre in 2022, right?
Yeah, I think those are out of the price range for the Padres. I'm not saying the Padres can't spend big money. They absolutely can, and they can shock us again and give out a multi-year deal. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't. So yeah, I think the guys that you just named off there, probably you won't see them in a Padres uniform.
And then you mentioned earlier Marcus Stroman. He'll get multiple years. He'll get paid to some extent. Maybe again, I'd be surprised. I think the way they spent and acquired last year with the Darvish and the Snell and the Musgroves, I don't envision that same thing playing out. Now, do I think they add to the rotation? We both do believe they will do that. Now, in terms of guys that you could take flyers on or might be more possible or realistic, let's start with someone. I mean, this might be ridiculous because you already have so many reclamation projects, but a player that would come on the cheap, Noah Syndergaard. Now, he hasn't pitched in 2 years. And he's coming off a significant injury, obviously, in Tommy John, and that's cost him the last 2 years. But, I mean, he would cost nothing, you would think, in terms of someone that could help you in a rotation, give you 100-plus innings. He's won before. We know about his track record. But, I mean, Noah Syndergaard, do you want another reclamation project like that?
It depends. That I view Preller as bringing in too many guys that have issues as far as, like, there's too many ifs with this team, with too many players. That can't happen. You can't have a third of your rotation be if guys. Like, if this guy stays healthy, then he'll be great. So if you're bringing in Noah Syndergaard as like your seventh pitcher, just to see what he got, right? What he has, then yeah, I'm cool with it. But if you're bringing him in, expecting him to have a big role this season, that's extremely risky. You know, you can't rely on guys with ifs if you're, wanting to contend for a National League West title and a potential World Series.
But do they even need that guy? Do they need a guy that, like, is there anyone that they would acquire that you'd be counting on to have that big year? Because at this point, we're talking about back end rotation guys.
Well, here's the thing. I think they believe they already have that in Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, and Joe Musgrove. They just need those guys to stay healthy, and they need Snell especially to perform like he did in the last month of his season. If that happens, they have those frontline guys. They need Darvish to stay healthy. They need Joe to have pretty much the same year he had this year. If that happens, then I think, feel good about, putting out flyers for guys like Noah Syndergaard, and then, seeing what you got with Mike Clevenger coming off a major injury, and who knows what's going to happen with Paddock. Who knows what's going to happen with Ryan Weathers and Dinelson Lamet. You have Morahone coming off a major injury. Like, if those three guys that I just named there performed, Snell, Darvish, Musgrove, like, I think they'll be okay trying to give it a guy flyer deal.
Yeah, I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not high on Lamet. I actually am relatively high on a Paddock. And I say that for a couple of reasons. A, I thought he had some moments that weren't just one start moments last year. B, we talked to Skip Schumacher, who kind of recognized the same thing that I recognized. He's still a relatively young pitcher. Again, am I counting on him to win 16 games for me? No. I think he's been relatively healthy the last 3 years, relatively speaking. So, if he does improve just a tick and becomes that real consistent number 4, number 5 starter, I actually see that as realistic. I don't see that as a significant stretch. But Lamet, I don't know. I don't even know how to start the season with Dinelson Lamet. I'd be tempted to do it in the bullpen as opposed to in my rotation. And then Clevenger, I'm higher on Clevenger than most people are, including you, I think. And I don't. Again, I'm not saying he's going to win 16 games. I'm not saying
I'm in a
he's going
wait
to
and
make
see
30
mode.
starts. Wait and see? That's fair.
I'm in a wait and see mode with Clevenger. Like I have to wait and see it before I want to rely on him to be a big part of that rotation next year.
Let's run through a few more names. Here's a name I'm really intrigued by. You brought it up before the show. Jalees Chacin, who you'll recall, Padres fans, in 2017 had a really good year. Had a sub-4 ERA. Now, he's had some bad moments in there. I think he's coming off. I'm pulling it up. This past year with Colorado was a pretty solid year.
Came out of the bullpen, started games for them.
Yeah, I mean, Chacin this past year. Let's see. As I'm slow to get it, Chacin in 64 and a third innings. So he only made 1 start. So he was coming out of the bullpen, had a 4.34 ERA. He was getting paid $800,000 last year, Jim. So I don't know if he's a bullpen possibility. I don't know if he's a starter possibility. But here's a guy that could come cheap and you could get a 1-year deal with.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the 1-year deal, guys, is what Preller needs to make sure he hits on. Like if he gives guys 1-year deals, they need to be, high upside, not much risk. Well, actually, you're going to get a lot of risk if you sign a 1-year deal.
Yep.
But still, they need to hit on a couple of 1-year guys, 1-year deal guys like Malanson this year. That was a big hit. You got Malanson. He became an all-star, led the league in saves. You need more of those type of deals, right? Where you have a 1-year, $3 million deal, and he becomes a stud for you, and that's what happened with Malanson, and they need more of that. So Chacin feels like he's been around forever. But if you want to take a flyer on the guy, if he seems reliable, you need a bullpen arm, you need a spot start here and there. Like Chacin, I feel like could fill that role. You're not going to rely on him to make 30 starts for you, but if you need him to make 8 to 10 starts for you because you have other issues with your rotation, and then you also need a long man, I think Chacin could fill that role on a 1-year cheap deal.
Now, here's another name that I think makes a lot of sense because of the ties to Ruben Niebla, Corey Kluber, who we know obviously is not the pitcher that he was at one point in his career, although he had a sneaky good year this past season with the Yankees. He made 16 starts, had a 3.83 ERA, and threw 80 innings in those 16 starts and only allowed 74 hits. Again, he would be affordable. He is a free agent. He's 35 years of age. He's a former draft pick of the Padres all the way back in 2007. But maybe that's a reunion that would make sense.
Yeah, I think bring him home, like because obviously he was drafted by the Padres. But that could be a reunion that can make a lot of sense. I think I don't know how much Niebla played a factor into Corey Kluber becoming Cy Young in Cleveland, but if he played a big role in it, then I think that would be a deal that would make a lot of sense. Bringing in Kluber wouldn't cost you a lot of money. You reunite him with Ruben Niebla. He didn't have like a horrible year last year. Now he did get hurt, but he still gave the Yankees something. And if you can reunite him with Niebla, I think that could be like a sneaky under the radar good pickup if you need a guy in the back end of your rotation.
Here's another sneaky name, although he never pitched, I don't think, with the Dodgers, did he? Danny Duffy, who had spent his entire career. He never pitched with the Dodgers. He had put together such a good year. 13 starts with Kansas City, had a 2.51 ERA. His career numbers in 11 seasons with Kansas City, he's got a sub-4 ERA. Now he's 32 years of age. Left-handed starting pitcher that has had a lot of success recently. Again, I don't know the extent of what his injury is and how it's going to impact him in 2022, but there's another guy that maybe you get him on a 1-year deal because he's 32. Maybe he gets multiple years. But he's put together some nice seasons here recently in the big leagues.
Yeah, I would love to take a flyer on a Danny Duffy for a 1-year deal, and like you said, he's pitched really well for the Royals. He didn't pitch. I don't think he pitched at all for the
No, I
Dodgers
don't think
last
he
year,
pitched. No.
and that was a name we talked about at the trade deadline as like a guy that could help out this rotation. Um, it's all about Preller's willingness to like want to go out and try to find those guys, right? Or is he going to be um, going into next year looking at this rotation like we have enough there, we just need to stay healthy? That's risky because they have the pitching. It's just they have a bunch of pitching that is hurt, or they have a bunch of pitching that has not performed up to their capabilities the last couple of years. Like you're higher on Paddock than I am. He's coming off an
Hmm.
injury, and who knows how he's going to perform the start of next season. Lamet on the same way. He's I don't know if Lamet's just like completely broken, but I don't think we're ever going to see the Lamet in 2020 again. It's hard to think that. And then you have Weathers and Gore, who just Gore has had a 6 ERA in the fall league. So yeah, a Duffy for a 1-year deal, absolutely.
What about Alex Wood, who we know played a very important role this year with the Giants? A 3.83 ERA, 10-4 overall in 26 starts. Has good career numbers, like most of these free agent pitchers, is in his 30s. He'll be in his age 31 season in 2022, former really high pick of the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I definitely would look at him. I don't know if he's going to get a 1-year deal because he pitched pretty well for the Giants last year. He pitched really well for them in the postseason. Um, he might return to San Francisco, but I like Alex Wood. Good lefty pitcher, has postseason experience, experience in the National League West. So yeah, I think Alex Wood would be a guy to look at for sure. Absolutely. He would be on the high end of like the higher end on my list as far as guys I would want them to go after for a one, maybe a 2-year deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alex Wood, Corey Kluber, 1-year deal, Danny Duffy, 1 year, maybe 2-year deal, Noah Syndergaard, flyer for, and then Joey Saucine, maybe like a bullpen guy, but Alex Wood would be probably towards the top of that list for me.
Now, John Gray is interesting. I think I've always been enamored with John Gray, just like the name. For whatever reason, you
Yeah.
feel like he's done more with less in Colorado. You know about Coors Field. You look further into the numbers. First of all, I was turned away a little bit about what he said at the trade deadline, like he didn't want to be a part of a super team, but something like that. He conveyed that. He
Okay.
didn't have a
Stop it.
good year. He had a 4.59 ERA. His career ERA is a 4.59. Now you can discount some of it because of Coors Field.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like someone's going to overpay for John Gray. I think he's getting 3 years. He just turned 30 today. He's had a nice career. He's been a starting pitcher in the big league since 2015. He's been reliable and dependable. He's made a lot of starts. So yeah, I've always liked the name, but I wonder if I like the name really than the pitcher that he's been. And again, I think on a 1 or 2 year deal, maybe, but I don't see a real big reason to go out and give someone $60 million for 4 years based on having a 4.59 career ERA just because he did it at Coors Field.
Didn't he turn down a contract extension from the Rockies recently or this past year?
They're
I
such
want
a
to say
weird
he did.
Do they even have? They don't even have like a GM
I don't
or
know.
like. But
I-
don't you think like he's gonna? He'll. You think he'd get multiple years, right? I mean, he's a relatively young
Mhm.
pitcher who's had
Yeah.
a relative amount of success as a frontline guy.
I think the best opportunity the Padres had, to get John Gray was at the past trade deadline.
Hmm.
I don't see them going out and giving a multiple year contract to a guy like John Gray. Um, I mean, maybe they do, but I just don't see it. I think he's going to demand more than what the Padres would be willing to spend and give to him, because if they blow their load on a John Gray, they still have to fill out their bullpen. They still have to fill out potentially the rest of their rotation because you have so many question marks at the back end of it. I just don't see them. I like John Gray. I like him a lot. I think he would be a great fit here, but it's all about how much would you have to spend, and how many years would you have to give him to make sure that he gets to San Diego?
All right, two more starter names real quickly. One of them, Eduardo Rodriguez. Boston missed all of 2020, bounced back, had a good 2021. I say good. He had a 4.74, but he was 13-8 with a good hitting team. He made 32 starts, so he was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he gets multiple years. He's 28. He's 28
Yeah.
years of age. He's won a lot of games. I think he could actually get paid this offseason. Another guy I think gets multiple years is Anthony Diesclefani. I thought he was that good this past year. I think he'll have deserved the opportunity to get multiple years. Maybe Diesclefani is more realistic than Rodriguez, because Rodriguez at 28, I think he's one of those candidates to get 3-4 years.
Diesclefani reminds me of a guy, like he's like almost like, I feel like a Beware type of guy, because like he had a really good season this past year. It's hard to imagine him duplicating that again on another team. And if he returns to the Giants, I still feel like it's going to be hard for him to duplicate that. Like, he had an amazing season last year. Look at his career numbers. They are not good. And yes, I know he pitched in Cincinnati, but still, maybe who knows? Maybe he found something and changed it up last year, and it can have success going forward. But I'm a little buyer's beware on Anthony Diesclefani. And Rodriguez, yeah, I would put him like Rodriguez, Alex Wood, Danny Duffy, those three guys right there. If they could pull off one of those guys, right? Because to get a left-handed pitcher in the rotation, and you're not relying on young Ryan Weathers, then yeah, I think if you get just one of those guys, that would be good. That would be good for this rotation.
Couple of things before we get into this bullpen, and this has happened today, so maybe you've seen it by now, but the Padres have exercised options on Pierce Johnson and Craig Stammen. They've declined options on Keone Kela, also a position player, utility outfielder Jake Mariznick. Mark Malanson has declined his player option. As you look towards closers, and that doesn't mean Mark Malanson, by the way, won't be back, but he could make more money in 2022 than he did in 2021. When you look at potential relievers or closers, let's start with Malanson. Do you think there's a scenario where he's back, or do you think he ultimately gets more elsewhere?
I think he gets more elsewhere. I think he's probably going to look for a multiple-year deal. He led the league in saves, all-star this year. I would not give him a multiple-year deal. If he picked up his club option, that'd be great, but he didn't. So now he's a free agent, and I would not pay him a multiple-year deal. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I agree. There's some other veteran, like a Craig Kimbrell. I don't see that.
No, I don't see it either. He might be looking for a bigger contract, but I think he didn't really have a good second half in Chicago for the White Sox. He was really good for the Cubs, but he wasn't as dominant with the White Sox. So I wouldn't. No. No.
Here's a name, Kendall Graveman, who Seattle moved off that amazing first half. He was okay with Houston. He's a free agent. He's 30. I'd imagine he'd get a pretty big deal, wouldn't you? I mean, he had a 1.77 this past year. Now, he'd never done it previously, but I mean, you're paying on now probably.
The one thing about Preller that he does very well is find closers.
Yep.
Like I don't feel as worried about the closer spot or really the bullpen as much as I am about the starting rotation and other parts of this roster, because I feel like Preller has done a very good job of finding those 1-year deal type of guys that turn into really big pieces of a bullpen, finding guys off the scrap heap like a Kirby Yates, turning them into all-star closers, a la Mark Malanson, Brad Hand. So I'm not worried about the bullpen as much as I am about the starting rotation, because I feel like Preller can find a guy for like a 1-year deal with an option, and they're gonna perform in the back end of that bullpen. That's not to say they don't have question marks with the bullpen. They absolutely do, because right now they don't have a closer. You have your highest paid reliever, Drew Pomeranz, coming off a big injury. Who knows what they're going to do with Matt Strom? I feel like, they just got rid of Keone Kela. They're bringing back Pierce Johnson, who I think had a really good year. Craig Stammen had a good year. So, but I'm not worried as much as I am about other parts of this rotation, about this bullpen.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with everything you said. I think Preller's been good there. I was surprised at the amount of money he gave Pomeranz, and I think ultimately it has backfired. Despite the fact that Pomeranz has been good, he hasn't been reliable. I would argue the reliability is just as important as the success you have. And we'll see if he can rebound. He's still got 2 years left on that deal, right, Pomeranz?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's a lot of time in a 162-game season where you can't pitch him back-to-back days. You can only throw him so many innings in a season. But when he's healthy, again, if you have him healthy and you have a good team and it's down the stretch, he can help you win games in September and October. I do believe that, but he's got to be available. Just a couple of more names here because you're right. I mean, the bullpen, there's literally probably 70 names we could throw out, 50 names.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Maybe we'll do that as we get into the offseason, but like a Joe Kelly is a little bit intriguing, a Brad Boxberger.
Right.
Maybe there would be some interest there. Guys like that. Again, veteran guys that have had success in the big leagues that aren't going to command major dollars, but could help you in your bullpen when you have a lead. Not necessarily 8th or 9th inning guys, but maybe pitching an 8th inning here, a 9th inning there, a 7th inning absolutely. Guys like that would come to mind.
Yeah, and like a Corey Knebel, I feel like is a guy. Jesse Chavez, Jake Diekman.
Yeah, he just declined an option with Oakland. Yep.
Yeah. So, what else do we got here? Steve Shisek, Tyler Clippard.
Yeah.
Tyler Clippard sucks.
He's old. A lot of these guys are.
Yeah. Adam Ottavino.
Yep.
I don't know. Tony Watson. Archie Bradley. There's a bunch of names.
This is like an all-name team. This is like an all-name team from 2016.
Exactly. So there's a bunch of names here, and I feel like Preller could find. I mean, you're going to find bullpen help. There's too many names here.
I'm with you. I'm more concerned about the rotation issues they had at the end of 2021, and honestly, I'm also concerned about a power bat offensively. I think we talked about that yesterday. If you missed the video, make sure to find it. That's a reason to subscribe, by the way. I'm concerned about them finding a power bat that is affordable. Are we missing names? Are we missing pitching names? Put them in the comments down below.
Free agent names. Free agent names.
Yeah, free agent names, exactly. Not just names, but guys that are free agents. If you haven't subscribed, again, we're doing year-round exclusive Padres content. That's the reason to do it. Free agency news. You see Jim, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you like this video specifically, hit the thumbs up and like this. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do that as well. At John Schaefer, at Jim Russell, SD. And until next time, this has been the Wrap-Up Show presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance.